Anthony Joshua sparring Joe Joyce? What? What's going on out here, man? Anthony Joshua set to spar Joe Joyce, you know, ahead of both of their clashes. You know, Anthony Joshua will be taking on Kubrat Pulev, and Joe Joyce will be taking on Daniel Dubois, and both are sparring ahead of their crucial heavyweight fights. What's going on here? They obviously, I know they've sparred before, but I'm thinking like, you know, Joe Joyce is trying to like get up the rankings and all this kind of thing, and I thought they'll have a little, you know, not direct rivalry right now, because obviously Joe Joyce isn't on the level in terms of notoriety and, you know, the magnitude of his fights as AJ. But, you know, I can't really envision Daniel Dubois going out to spar Anthony Joshua right now. So why would Joe Joyce be doing that? Obviously they sparred before, like I said, but, you know, if you're trying to create like a domestic rivalry between yourself and AJ, like Daniel Dubois is sort of, you know, trying to do with the way he speaks and everything, why would you go and spar, you know, a domestic rival? But seems like Joe Joyce is happy to do that. Let's jump into Eddie Hearn's comments. Where we at? Eddie Hearn says there's been many bruising sessions over the years talking about Joe Joyce and Joe Joyce sparring Joshua. So Joe's been around for many years on the amateur scene when AJ was coming through. Joe was one of the experienced guys, and some of their spars have been fantastic. Obviously AJ went to another level, but Joe is still an astounding heavyweight. I think he also went on to say, I think the research will be in place to identify probably half a dozen sparring partners. You know, that'll be right for Pulev. The sparring for Andrew Ruiz the first time around was so difficult because we had 5 weeks to find a short, sorry, tubby, fast heavyweight with great movement. It's very difficult to find. We've got to get it perfectly for the we got it perfectly right for the rematch. We really brought in 5 or 6 guys that had the speed, had the movement, and replicated the style. So those are the words of Eddie Hearn. So Eddie Hearn looking to get, you know, people in for sparring for AJ, you know, for Kubrat Pulev and Joe Joyce. You know, I think Joe Joyce could, you know, well try and replicate Kubrat Pulev's style, standing up tall, using the jab. I think, you know, Joe Joyce is a good, you know, fighter to use for sparring for AJ, you know, to try and replicate that Kubrat Pulev style. Obviously Joe Joyce is bigger than Kubrat Pulev, you know, taller than Kubrat Pulev, but I still think that certain dynamics might be a good, you know, method of sparring, you know, for Anthony Joshua. And for Joe Joyce to be doing this, they must be offering him some good money. I don't think Joe Joyce, you know, obviously Joe Joyce always speaking so positively of Tyson Fury over AJ these days. You know, they must be offering some, what do you call it, Joe Joyce some good money green to be sparring, you know, AJ. Obviously, Joe Joyce, I think he said here somewhere on this article that he spars to, you know, Tyson Fury as well. So, you know, Joe Joyce, you know, not allowing his ego to get blown up too much, you know, trying to keep his ego aside, he's trying to learn. Like, I think he did say in this article somewhere, where did he say that? I think it must have been here, it must have been on another article. Well, you know, Joe Joyce was talking about he's learned, where is it? Let me see if it's here. Nah, maybe it's not here. I saw, you know, on another article somewhere, Joe Joyce talking about, you know, he's learned from sparring Tyson Fury, and maybe he wants to learn more from sparring, you know, AJ as well, not allowing him, you know, his ego to get blown up, talking about his fight against Dubois. Dubois is not sparring no Anthony Joshua. Dubois has sparred, you know, Povetkin, you know, but I just don't see Dubois coming out sparring no Anthony Joshua. And I don't even think Frank Warren is trying to build up his own version of AJ. Obviously, I don't think Daniel Dubois is, you know, as marketable as AJ, but he's trying to, obviously, I feel like Frank Warren's trying to get his own, you know, young potential, you know, heavyweight champion, you know, to rival Eddie Hearn in the form of AJ. So I don't see, you know, what do you call it, Daniel Dubois going over and sparring, you know, Anthony Joshua. And maybe because, you know, Dubois is more favored with, you know, Frank Warren than Joe Joyce. Maybe that's why Frank Warren wouldn't care so much about, you know, Dubois going up, about Joe Joyce going over there and sparring AJ. So to him, he feels like he's, you know, the guy who's going to generate the most money and take over the heavyweight boxing is going to be Daniel Dubois. But Joe Joyce, you know, humble guy, you know, I don't know him personally, but only a humble guy is going to go and spar a domestic rival like that. And even if some people say, well, Joe Joyce ain't really on the level of Anthony Joshua, you're telling me that Dubois in his mind doesn't see himself. Like, Dubois is already talking about fighting people like Deontay Wilder. talking about he wants to get on with the big names. You know, I would think Joe Joyce in his mind sees himself as, you know, a rival to Anthony Joshua, but he's humble enough to go and spar him. So that's the difference maybe between a Dubois, you know, and a, what do you call it, and a Joe Joyce and a Dubois. But, you know, Eddie Hearn talking about AJ and Joe Joyce have had good sparring. You know, Joe Joyce was talking about, you know, that they basically go at it in sparring. Obviously, I don't really think they're going to be going at it. If Joe Joyce is to really spar AJ, it's going to be more, like Eddie Hearn said, about replicating, you know, Kubrat Pulev style, which I do think, you know, Joe Joyce could do, you know, pretty well. You know, stylistically, I think he could do that pretty well. You know, with a, you know, decent jab and everything like that. And he's taller. I think how tall is Kubrat Pulev? Joe Joyce is definitely bigger and taller than Kubrat Pulev. So I think Joe Joyce is, you know, tough man, you know, the juggernaut they like to call him. And I think it's a good, you know, sparring partner for AJ, for Kubrat Pulev. And just have to wait and see what happens. So drop your comments in the comment section below. What do you think about, you know, Anthony Joshua sparring a domestic rival in Joe Joyce? What do you think about this? Make sure you like and subscribe and do all that good stuff. But Joe Joyce, you know, sparring Anthony Joshua ahead of their big time clashes. Joe Joyce fighting Dubois, you know, in the domestic dust up. Anthony Joshua trying to get past his IBF mandatory. You know, when is Anthony Joshua really going to fight Kubrat Pulev? And is this Joe Joyce fight really going to happen between Dubois? Is Joe Joyce really going to be fighting Dubois anytime soon? Because from Frank Warren's side, man, the fights on the Frank Warren side, you know, I just don't hear any positivity in terms of fights happening behind closed doors. And it's only feasible for this Joe Joyce, you know, Dubois to happen in the UK. Anthony Joshua and Pulev could very much happen in another country for me. You know, Sweden's pretty open. They could go over there. I don't know how it is down there in Turkey. You know, I don't know if they chose to go to Kubrat Pulev's backyard. See, Kubrat Pulev's Bulgarian, but, you know, Turkey, Bulgaria, I think Pulev's got a fan base in Turkey. So we have to wait and see what happens. So drop your comments in the comment section below. What do you think? Joe Joyce sparring AJ. Drop your comments again. Cool.